When you picture a financial ledger, there's usually this expectation of perfect cold precision. You know what I mean? You imagine this clean spreadsheet.
Right, like everything is in its right place.
Exactly. You line up the debits against the credits, the math just clicks into place, and the bottom line is just, well, it's this absolute undeniable truth. It feels clean. It feels safe.
Yeah, because it's the language of mathematics, It's orderly, it's rational, and it's completely visible to anyone who actually knows how to read it.
But then you step into the world of Amanda Park's gritty thriller, A Life for a Life, which you might also know by its alternate title, Sled and Redemption. And that perfectly balanced spreadsheet is just dragged out of the boardroom and literally into the gutter.
Oh, yeah. It is a messy transition.
It's very messy. We're looking at a scenario where the ink on the ledger is literal blood, and the bottom line is measured entirely in human lives. So our mission for this deep dive into the source material is to explore this very specific, high-stakes intersection. We're pulling apart the exact point where street-level violence violently collides with white-collar corporate corruption.
And we're really going to look at the anatomy of that collision because, when those two worlds meet, the illusions of control that both sides kind of hold on to, they're completely shattered.
So transport yourself for a second to 3:15 a.m.
Yeah.
It's a foggy, pouring rain kind of night in North Philadelphia. And hidden on the third floor, right above this quiet little neighborhood laundromat called Kwan's 24-Hour Express, is an unmarked steel-reinforced door.
Right.
And it leads to a place called The Vault.
Which is this highly secure, invite-only underground gambling room. It's an ecosystem that is completely off the grid.
Completely.
Insulated by its own brutal set of rules, really, where just massive amounts of illicit cash are changing hands every single night.
And sitting in the shadows down the block, inside a silver sedan with the headlights killed, is our protagonist, Malachi. He's sitting there with his crew. There's Jin, who's the tech guy, and Terrell, who is basically the muscle.
Yeah, the heavy hitter.
Right. But this is not a standard robbery. I mean, Malachi is there to steal the house's cash just to survive, sure. But more importantly, he's there to steal a master ledger held by the house manager, a guy named Raymond Cruz.
Because Raymond is the man who framed Malachi's brother.
Yes, Travis.
Okay.
And Travis is currently sitting in a maximum security prison for a crime he did absolutely not commit.
So the stakes for Malachi literally could not be higher here. I mean, he needs that specific physical book to prove who actually moved the illegal weight that his brother took the fall for.
Okay, let's unpack this prep, because I found myself, I was completely stumped by the logic of their heist plan.
It's definitely a weird one.
Right. Jen, the tech guy, he executes this incredibly quiet, stealthy bypass on the alley's security cameras. He taps into a junction box and puts the feed on this 15-minute delayed loop. It's incredibly surgical.
Super high tech.
But then, seconds later, to actually get inside the room, Terrell uses a heavy hydraulic breaching tool to literally blow the steel door off its hinges. Like, it is a deafening explosion. So why use a stealthy digital hack just to immediately announce your presence to the whole neighborhood? It feels completely contradictory.
It does, yeah. It seems totally counterintuitive. If you're trying to be a ghost, why use explosives, right?
Exactly.
But it actually comes down to understanding the very specific mechanics of automated emergency response times. The crew, they're not trying to be invisible. They are actively managing the dispatch clock.
Okay, walk me through how that clock works in this scenario.
So if you simply smash a security camera or like if a digital feed suddenly goes black, the automated private security system registers a fault, right? And it instantly pings a remote dispatcher.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that dispatcher sees a black screen, assumes an intrusion, and they route the police immediately. The response time starts the second the camera dies.
Wow.
But by looping the feed, the remote dispatcher just sees an empty, quiet hallway. The system thinks everything is totally fine. Now, blowing the physical door off its hinges with a hydraulic charge, yes, it is incredibly loud. But consider the environment.
Right, it's raining, it's late.
Exactly. In a gritty industrial neighborhood at 3:15 in the morning, amidst pouring rain and fog, an explosion does not automatically trigger an alarm.
Ah, because there's no automated sensor for the noise out in the alley. You're relying entirely on a human being.
Precisely. You're relying on a random neighbor to wake up from a deep sleep, identify what that muffled noise was through the weather, debate whether it's their problem, and then actively decide to call 911.
Which takes time.
Right. So by trading digital immediacy for physical chaos, they bought themselves a crucial 10-minute operational window before the police even know a crime is in progress.
That is a brilliant calculation. But man, the second they breach that door, the calculation just ends. It is just raw brutality inside that cage. Malachi shatters the reinforced teller window with a crowbar, grabs the ledger, and the cage guard, who ironically is this stocky guy named Marcus Collins, which is the name we really need to pin to the board for
No,
later.
absolutely. Keep that name in mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Marcus makes a desperate reach for a hidden shotgun, and Terrell instantly drops him with a heavy .45 caliber round to the throat.
The atmosphere of the room changes instantly there. That specific caliber of weapon in close quarters, it transforms a robbery into a slaughter.
It does. And then Raymond, the manager who framed Malachi's brother, he's backed into a corner, covered in the guard's blood, and he's just begging for his life. He promises he won't say a word. But Malachi knows the rules of the cartel backing this room. If Raymond lives, the streets know exactly who hit the vault by sunrise.
No loose ends.
Exactly. So Terrell reverses his grip on the crowbar and brings it down, crushing Raymond's skull.
Yeah.
They pack up $90,000 in cash, grab the ledger, and they just run.
What's fascinating here is the language of that violence. When homicide detectives eventually step into that room, they're reading a scene.
Right.
A professional cleaner executing a cartel hit would use a suppressed weapon to minimize the mess and the noise. It would be clinical.
Right. They'd want to be in and out without leaving a signature, like strictly business.
But the blunt force overkill of using a crowbar, that tells the detectives immediately that this was not a business transaction. This was driven by deep, emotional, personal leverage.
Yeah.
The crew left a loud, violent message that this was personal revenge.
We see this incredible cold calculation in bypassing the security system.
Huh.
But the paradox of extreme planning is that you just cannot engineer out human physiology. I mean, you can hack a camera, but you can't hack your own nervous system.
No, you really can't.
It makes me think of a corporate IT network, actually. A company can spend millions of dollars on firewalls and two-factor authentication, building this impenetrable, perfect system. But that entire multi-million-dollar fortress is compromised the second an employee writes their password on a sticky note and just leaves it attached to their monitor.
That is a fantastic way to look at it. The human element is always, always the ultimate point of failure.
And in this story, the sticky note is a dropped lighter.
Yeah, it perfectly illustrates the physiological reality of an adrenaline crash. When Malachi is in the cage, his sympathetic nervous system is in total control. The body is just flooded with cortisol and epinephrine.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. It prioritizes macro movements, fighting, running, swinging a crowbar. But the moment they're back in the getaway car and that immediate threat passes, the parasympathetic nervous system just slams on the brakes.
So the body is basically trying to aggressively power down.
Yes. And the physical result of that massive chemical dump is severe tremors. Your fine motor skills completely degrade. Like you literally cannot stop your hands from shaking.
Which brings us to the getaway car. Malachi reaches into his pocket for his vape pen, just to steady his nerves. But because his hands are shaking uncontrollably from the crash, he fumbles and he accidentally drops a custom silver Zippo lighter.
Oh, it's such a tense moment.
It really is. It slides and wedges deep under the driver's seat. And this is not a generic convenience store lighter. It's a gift from his sister, deeply engraved with his exact initials, M.A.V. Malachi Austin Vance.
I mean, leaving an engraved piece of personal property at the scene of a double homicide getaway is the definition of catastrophic.
Total disaster. And it introduces this massive element of uncontrollable chaos, specifically the weather. So the crew's plan is to take this silver sedan to an auto detailing shop on Hunting Park Avenue, strip the interior, and torch it to destroy any DNA evidence. But it's pouring rain in Philadelphia.
The irony is incredible. You have this hyper-calculated, violent revenge plot, and the failsafe is completely derailed by precipitation.
Right.
The rain pours through the shattered windows and just puts the fire out before the interior of the car can fully burn.
Which leaves the interior intact enough for Detectives Vance and Lynn to find that abandoned car, dig under the seat tracks, pull out the silver lighter, run those initials, and connect Malachi directly to the officer who originally arrested his brother.
Who just happens to be Raymond Cruz.
Exactly. The perfect plan is unraveling, and the police are now actively hunting them.
But while the police are closing in on the auto shop, Malachi is finally examining the prize. He opens the stolen master ledger.
And he finds this gold embossed seal pressed into the binder. It's a stylized iron anvil with the initials LS Liberty Structural. And This is where the scope of the story massively expands. Because the puppet master, or, well, maybe better term is the architect behind all this corruption, is Malachi's former boss.
The CEO of Liberty Structural.
Yeah, and his name's Marcus Collins.
Echoing the exact name of the disposable guard they just killed in the cage. I mean, it is a brilliant narrative mirror.
It really is. Now, I really need to push you on the exact mechanics of this ledger, because this is where a lot of people, they get lost in the weeds of financial crime.
Sure, it can get complicated.
How does a wealthy commercial construction CEO use a smoky third-floor gambling den in North Philly to launder money? What is the actual mechanism connecting a pristine boardroom to a cartel-backed poker table?
Well, think of the gambling den as a financial airlock. A corrupt CEO in commercial construction often needs to bribe local union bosses,
No.
perhaps to ensure there are no labor strikes, or maybe to get inspectors to look the other way when the company uses cheap, non-certified steel in a skyscraper.
But the CEO obviously cannot just write a corporate check with bribe in the memo line.
Exactly. The money has to be untraceable cash. But if Liberty Structural just withdraws $200,000 in cash from their corporate account, the IRS immediately flags it.
Right, that's a massive red flag.
So Collins writes legitimate-looking corporate checks to phantom LLCs. These are shell companies he set up, like Anvil Logistics, and he bills them for fake consulting work or phantom material deliveries.
Wait, okay, but if I'm writing a check to Anvil Logistics, there's still a paper trail. The bank sees that check being cashed. So how does losing it at a poker table wash it?
Because the people running the proxy LLCs, they withdraw that money as legitimate business income, and then they physically carry that dirty cash into the vault. They sit at the high-stakes tables and intentionally lose large sums of money to the house.
Oh, wow. So it just looks like a terrible run of luck.
Exactly. Raymond, the house manager, takes a cut of the cash for providing the laundering service, and then he pays the rest of that cash out to the corrupt union bosses under the guise of casino winnings.
Ah, I see. The poker table acts as the washing machine. The money goes in as dirty corporate theft, and it comes out the other side with a perfectly clean legal alibi. The union boss just had a great night at the tables.
It creates an impenetrable buffer. The gambling den is essentially acting as an unregulated offshore bank for domestic corporate crime. And Malachi's brother, Travis, who was a brilliant auditor for Liberty Structural, he noticed these missing funds.
So to protect this financial airlock, the CEO ordered Raymond to plant 5 kilos of narcotics in Travis's trunk.
Yeah.
I mean, the CEO reaped all the financial rewards of the corruption, but he offloaded all the legal and physical risk onto disposable blue-collar workers.
It's the ultimate insulation from consequences. The CEO uses his wealth and distance to basically commit violence through paperwork.
But before Malachi can even fully process the scale of this conspiracy, the SWAT team raids the auto shop. It is a deafening, chaotic scene. Terrell is firing his .45 directly at the police ballistic shields, trying to buy time. Jin jumps into a rusted Chevy Blazer sitting on a hydraulic lift, throws it in reverse, and literally drives the truck backward through a patched cinder block wall to escape into an alley.
It's pure desperation.
But it works, and it triggers a complete inversion of the power dynamic.
The entire trajectory of the conflict shifts here. Malachi is no longer just trying to survive the streets or dodge the police. He takes the fight directly to the corporate hierarchy.
They drive that stolen, battered truck straight to the manicured lawns of Chestnut Hill, to the CEO's multi-million-dollar gated estate. And this highlights a fascinating clash of two completely different worlds.
Oh, absolutely.
CEO Marcus Collins believes that his zip code, his wealth, and his gated estate make him physically untouchable. As you said earlier, he's perfectly comfortable committing violence via paperwork like destroying a family with planted evidence. But he believes physical violence is something that only happens in other neighborhoods.
He relies on social and physical barriers to keep the consequences of his actions at bay.
And Malachi violently shatters every single one of those barriers. He breaches the estate gate by taking a steel crowbar and shattering the private security guard's kneecap. Then they literally smash through the glass French doors of the mansion. The pristine, quiet wealth of the estate instantly collides with men who have nothing left to lose.
The financial airlock is broken. The toxicity of the streets floods directly into the pristine boardroom environment.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I found myself genuinely conflicted reading this next section. Because up until this point in the deep dive, you're rooting for Malachi.
Right, he's the underdog.
Yeah, you want him to save his innocent brother from this corrupt system. But once they're inside the grand foyer, Malachi ties up the CEO, his wife Elena, and their 10-year-old son Elijah to the dining room chairs.
Yeah, it gets really dark.
And Terrell sadistically taunts this crying child with a hunting knife just to force the bleeding CEO to sign a legal confession on the ledger. I have to push back on our protagonist here. I mean, hasn't Malachi become the exact same kind of monster he's trying to destroy?
You're hitting on the central tragic paradox of the entire narrative there. Vigilante justice always demands a terrible price. Malachi is now utilizing the exact same tools of fear, leverage, and coercion that the corrupt system used against his family.
But he thinks he's justified.
Exactly. He's convinced himself that because his cause is righteous, the ends justify the means.
But the psychological trauma he's inflicting on that innocent 10-year-old boy is real, and it's permanent.
He is transferring his own trauma onto another innocent party. He's rewriting the ledger to save his brother, yes, but he's paying the balance with his own humanity. He has become the violence he hates.
And the standoff doesn't last long enough for him to fully justify it to himself. The state police tactical units arrive, and they blow the massive oak front doors off their hinges with a hydraulic charge, which echoes the exact way the crew breached the vault.
Full circle.
It triggers this blinding, deafening firefight right there in the marble foyer. Flashbangs go off, shattering the chandelier. Terrell takes a SWAT volley to the shoulder. Jin is hit by flying shrapnel. The entire revenge plan just falls apart.
And in that moment of absolute, overwhelming chaos, Malachi looks at the 10-year-old boy who is, just convulsing with silent tears in the crossfire. The delusion of righteous vengeance breaks.
Yeah, reality sets in.
Malachi realizes the absolute horror of what he has dragged into this home.
Yeah.
So he dives over the mahogany desk, uses his own body to shield the ledger from the gunfire, and he surrenders.
Which brings the cold, unyielding reality of the legal system crashing down on everyone. We find Malachi in a cinder block interrogation room with Detective Vance. And this is where the legal fallout truly surprised me.
It catches a lot of people off guard.
Why is Malachi facing a permanent life sentence for murder when Terrell is the one who pulled the trigger and swung the crowbar in the gambling den? I mean, Malachi never actually killed anyone.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the resolution here revolves entirely around a fascinating and, frankly, highly controversial legal concept called the felony murder rule.
Okay, what is that?
Well, Detective Vance lays this out under Pennsylvania law. The underlying legal philosophy of this rule is strict liability and deterrence.
It feels incredibly draconian. Why does the law completely ignore his intent? He wasn't there to kill anyone.
Because the state wants to deter people from committing dangerous crimes in the first place. The law dictates that if you willingly participate in an inherently dangerous felony like, say, an armed robbery, you own all of the foreseeable consequences of that action.
Oh.
It does not matter who actually pulled the trigger. By organizing the heist and bringing armed men into a volatile situation, Malachi created the environment where death was a probable outcome.
So because he built the bomb, so to speak, the law tags him with every single body that drops when it goes off.
The justice system does not care about his noble motivations to save his brother. It operates on cold mathematical statutes. You simply cannot trade 2 dead bodies for a corporate financial ledger, no matter how much corruption that ledger actually proves.
And under the crushing weight of that reality, the crew fractures. Survival instinct just kicks in. Jin is terrified of dying in prison, so he takes a 10 to 20-year plea deal to testify. Terrell is facing the maximum penalty, so he betrays Malachi to save himself from lethal injection. Ultimately, Malachi accepts 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole.
It is the ultimate accounting transaction of the book. He literally traded the remainder of his natural life to buy back his brother's freedom.
Because the crazy thing is, the physical receipts actually work. The federal government takes that blood-stained ledger, they launch a massive grand jury investigation, and they completely dismantle Liberty Structural.
They tear it all down.
The corrupt CEO goes to federal prison for racketeering, and the Conviction Integrity Unit fully exonerates Travis. The truth actually comes to light.
The system ultimately functioned, but only because a massive illegal act of violence forced the evidence out of the shadows and onto the record.
Which leads to this incredibly bittersweet cinematic epilogue. We're in the sterile concrete visitation booth at SCI Phoenix. Travis is sitting on one side of the bulletproof glass. He's clean-shaven, wearing a beautifully tailored suit. He tells Malachi he's moving to Atlanta for a legitimate accounting job. Just starting over.
A fresh start.
Right. And Malachi, sitting in his faded blue inmate uniform, tells him that the streets never gave them a choice. The system was bought and paid for from the start. The ledger is closed. A life for a life.
It's a chilling visual of the scales balancing. One brother steps out into the sun, while the other voluntarily returns to the dark.
So what does this all mean when we step back and look at the whole picture? Amanda Park's story is a visceral reminder that the men in the boardrooms are the ones who sign the papers, but it is always the people on the street level who actually bleed for it. I mean, the insulation of wealth allows corruption to flourish until someone is willing to pay the ultimate personal price to expose it.
It challenges the listener to really think about the physical cost of balancing the scales when the formal avenues of justice are, corrupted.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought to just mull over. We just spent this entire time analyzing a physical, leather-bound black book, a tangible object that could be stolen, carried in a getaway car, and handed over to federal authorities to prove systemic corruption.
Right, a physical piece of evidence.
But look at our modern reality. We are rapidly moving toward a world of entirely digital finance, offshore shell companies, and encrypted blockchain ledgers.
The landscape of evidence is completely shifting.
You cannot take a crowbar to a crypto wallet. If this story happened today, and that master ledger was just a string of encrypted code on a decentralized server halfway across the world, physical force would not have helped Malachi at all. Does the evolution of decentralized digital finance make it impossible for everyday people to ever expose the truth?
It's a scary thought.
By removing the physical evidence, are we effectively making blue-collar fall guys permanently disposable in the modern era? It makes you wonder if that perfectly balanced invisible spreadsheet we talked about at the very beginning is actually the most dangerous weapon of all. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the bottom line, and we'll see you next time.